Complex decision-making is a major part of being a CEO. How do you ensure you are able to make decisive and effective decisions that lead to positive and successful outcomes for your organisation?
It's a really simple answer: on brand, on values, on strategy, on purpose. They're the checklist for decision making every single time.
Again, I'd go back to the strategies. What you want to make sure is if you're going to spend a lot of your energy and time and effort to take bold decisions, they've got to be absolutely supporting the strategies of the business, whether it's short term or medium term or long term.
The board needs to have an appreciation at an operational level, and the way we do that is we actually take the board over to the projects and give them an experiential experience of the types of work that we do and the conditions under which we work. They make decisions sitting around a board table in Sydney, so their understanding of what we're actually doing in some fairly remote areas needs to be informed by actually having experienced that. Otherwise, they're just looking at spreadsheets, balance sheets, reports, without the context in which to make meaningful decisions.
I think intuition does play an important part, but certainly not the only thing to rely on. Facts, figures are hugely important. When I hesitate, I then examine all sides.
Secondly, I think in terms of decision process, you need to have a certain consultation process around your decisions so that you get the buy-in from your board, but also from your management team. Now, sometimes you may be ahead of the game in the sense that CEOs can have a vision that's not necessarily shared by the board or shared by the management team, and it can be a bit lonely in that space, but it's also why you're hired.
I do think that there's a duty of care around consultation in the non-profit world that's higher. I mean, I think the reality is in the business world, certainly in my experience, the command and control type management structure is probably more common. In the non-profit world, if you don't do at least a pretty reasonable job of consulting and engaging people before you make a decision, you won't get the same degree of buy-in and support. Now, while that's universal, you have to tread very carefully, and certainly SVA's experience, and I think some of my bigger management decision-making mistakes have been where I've not consulted or engaged, because actually what draws people to you is, it's not the money. People are there because they're passionate about what they do. So if you don't treat that passion with respect, then you'll lose something very substantial. So I think that notion of being prepared to engage and consult more thoughtfully is critical.
I am just here to service in the best possible way and add impact in the best possible way the people that we have chosen to work with. And my decisions all go back to that core. Is it good for the end user? Will our service benefit? Will the people benefit? It makes it quite easy to make decisions, but of course they're often hard decisions, and you just apply the same rules.
The same rules of life still apply in some of the bigger calls. You've got it to an extent, yes, consult, but B, if you're chief executive or you're in a leadership position, you've got to back your judgment, and some of those calls you'll make are hopefully more than 50% are right, otherwise you won't stay around in the job.
At some stage you've got to have self-belief, and at some stage when you've done your consultation, you've got the board approval, you've got to actually call the shots and make the decision and be the champion of it. Even if everyone around the table hasn't yet understood exactly where is it going to lead.
You've got to be prepared not to shy away from those calls.
You also need to have networks around you that can support you in your critical judgment, in your discernment. So in my case, I'm part of the CEO Institute, which gives me a platform once a month to talk to CEOs from a range of non-for-profit to for-profit organizations. We put on the table anything that needs to be discussed, and they give me some very good advice and help me in terms of having those one-to-one quality conversation with CEOs that may be going through the same issues that you're going through, or may have already had the strategies or the solutions for it.
A lot of the complexity in this role for me comes from the need to align that vast array of stakeholders, each with their own, I suppose, expectations and emotions that they bring, to our agenda. My task is to keep them aligned with the business strategy, and that often is very challenging. But, at the heart of the CEO role today in any business, whether it's not for profit or for profit, is that ability to deal with complexity.